Good morning, everybody. How are you doing?
Robert, how's it going?
Pretty good. So it doesn't look, in terms of voting members, it doesn't look like we have quorum yet. Well, actually, now that Dee Dee's here, we might. So with that, I can go ahead and give a brief introduction and then we can launch into the meeting. Good morning, everybody. My name is Robert Watkins. I'm city staff, and I will just be making sure that things run smoothly on the virtual side of things for today's Historic Resources Committee meeting. This is the committee's March meeting. And really the only announcement I have that I have every month is if you wish to provide any public comment, we have 10 minutes devoted to public comment at the beginning of the meeting. In order to do that, though, you'll need to go to the city calendar on the city website and register for the Zoom meeting. And then once you join in Zoom, you'll be able to raise your hand when we get to the public comment portion. Other than that, though, please let me know if you have any technical issues and I'll try to resolve them. I can pass things over to our chair, Phil Varner.
That's good. Do you know if Jeff was going to be here today?
He should be logging on,
okay.
But I assume he'll be joining shortly.
Sounds good. I just wanted to check. Okay. Yeah, I called this meeting of the Historic Resources Committee for March 2022 to order. I'll pass it back over to Robert to do a roll call.
Okay. I will just call names, and then if you can just verbally say that you're here, that would be great. First, our ex officio member, Tom Chapman.
Here.
Sally Duncan.
Here.
Here. Genevieve Keller won't be able to join us today. Jessica Livingston. I believe, Phil, that she won't be able to join us, but I might be wrong. Okay, Jessica Livingston also won't be able to join. Margaret O'Brien.
Here.
Jelaine Schmidt won't be joining us today. Kay Slaughter.
Here.
Dee Dee Smith.
Here.
Phil Varner.
Here.
Jeff Werner has not logged on yet, but I know that he'll be joining. And let's see, Richard Wilson. Richard is here, but he's still connecting to the audio. So that's a here for Richard. And that's all.
Great, thanks, Robert. Okay, next on to the approval of the agenda. I know there was one addition that Jenny wanted to make to discuss something that we could discuss under the engagement with the descendants community for the Court Square slave auction block site regarding Preservation Piedmont contributing to the Ann Bailey event. Other than that, were there any other additions or comments about the agenda? Okay, seeing none, could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
And a second from Richard. Okay, great. Please indicate if you support passing this agenda. Okay. And next on to the approval of the meeting notes from January and February. I think the only comment I had about the February ones is that it looks like all the text is in italic. So if you could change that back so it's a little easier to read, that would be great.
Sure.
And I think that's been the same with all the other meeting notes. They haven't been like that. I didn't have any comments about the content though. Were there any comments about the content from anyone? Okay.
Whoops.
Okay, you're good now.
Say I really
Okay.
I appreciated getting the notes from the interns attached to it. The notes.
I feel like,
Yeah.
especially with the list of names that they included in their
Yes,
research, that was an
right.
important thing to include.
Yeah, we also included that in the final document that was sent to City Council for the status report. Yeah, and I think I neglected to actually send anybody a link to the City Council packet that included that, but I'll send that out to everyone after the meeting. Any additional comments on the meeting notes? Okay, and with that, could I get a motion to approve the meeting notes for January and February? Okay, Kay makes that motion and
Second.
Uh,
Or
yeah.
Richard.
let's just say Dee Dee. Please indicate your approval for the pass this motion. Okay, passes. I will also sort of briefly interject here. There's some other styles of motions and whatnot that can be a little bit easier for things like this that are sort of perfunctory. And I'm going to investigate some of those, so we may not actually have to do these like motion voting things. We can just do something that's a little simpler going forward.
Phil, I know that somewhat recently we made changes to our agenda and bylaws, I guess, regarding the membership. But maybe if you wanted to, if we wanted to have a work session or devote half of a meeting 1 month to just streamlining our process or just how our agenda moves, we could do that. Yeah,
that sounds like a good idea. I don't think we have anything official in our bylaws as to how we actually run the meetings. So it's sort of tradition and yeah, anyway. So yeah, we'll move forward with that. Next up is public comment. So I'll pass that back over to Robert.
Sure. Let me first read the public comment policy that is in our agenda. And then I'll start asking people if they wish to speak. So regarding public comment, the HRC values community participation and input and welcomes public comment at meetings. At the beginning of each meeting, not more than 10 minutes will be allowed for the introduction of any guests and public comments. Speakers may speak for a maximum of 2 minutes and shall begin by identifying their name and address. So if we have folks who wish to provide comment, you can raise your hand in the participant chat tab, and I will unmute you. So we have a raised hand from Richard Allen. Mr. Allen, I'm going to allow you to talk, and then you'll need to unmute yourself, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. So you can unmute yourself now.
Thanks so much for this opportunity, Robert, and committee. Rachel Lloyd told me back in 2020 that HRC values collaboration with citizen groups, and your own web presence at charlottesville.gov confirms this. Well, back then, our little citizen group applied to DHR. That's back in 2020 for a state historic marker acknowledging enslavement at Court Square. We understood, of course, that HRC would work with DHR to provide the correct wording on that marker, but we did offer to pay the $3,000 making and installment costs. But City Manager Boyles refused this offer. I've been really glad to hear in recent meetings that HRC is reconsidering such a marker. Would you allow our group to pay for it? We have asked City Council to relocate 2 parking spaces beside Zero Park Street, and have conferred with the city engineer, who told us that this could be easily done. This gives visual access to that side of Zero Park Street. We also asked council to extend the sidewalk beyond the building by that 8 feet, giving HRC a wider space for its upcoming memorializing plans at Court Square. Please review the design that architect Nick Brown and I provided to Chairman Varner. Please, HRC leaders, I ask you to request at once from City Council that they authorize these 2 proposals. And I will support these 2 proposals by continuing to advocate for them with City Council. I want to thank each of you for the incredible work you do and the skill sets you bring to bear on behalf of our city and its history, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Allen. If there are any other people who wish to provide comment, please raise your hand in the participant tab, and I will unmute you. Mr. Chair, I don't see any other raised hands.
Thanks, Robert. Next on to engagement of the tenant community for Court Square Slave Auction Block site. I don't think we have much to discuss here. We sent the status report to council, and that was in the packet and the consent agenda for the Monday council meeting. That took a little bit longer than we thought to finalize, but the end result was pretty good, with including the notes from the few descendant engagement sessions and including Medeja and Jake's short report about what they've discovered so far in that. So that's out. And then I think the main thing that we want to emphasize and work on for the next month is Dr. Ann Bailey's visit. That has been confirmed. She is going to be coming on April 12th, and we'll likely be having a small gathering at in the Swanson room at Central Library that evening, and then also have a virtual component, of course. The details of that are being rapidly worked out, and will probably be finalized next week. But we definitely need to start publicizing this and making sure it gets out so that people know that it's happening and can engage with that. It's kind of nice that she'll be able to actually come in person and actually see the Seacourt Square and have some interactions with people here. So, Dee Dee, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I just, could you just for the public's sake, since it's the public meeting, reiterate what Dr. Bailey's topic is and why we're bringing her here?
Yeah, I can. So Dr. Bailey is what probably the leading authority on auctions of enslaved individuals in the United States. Her primary book is called The Weeping Time, about a sale in 1859 on the Butler plantation, or from the Butler estate in South Carolina, which was the largest single auction occurring over 2 days of enslaved individuals in the United States. She has, her book is called The Weeping Time, as that event was called, and documents the sort of lead up to it in terms of the Butler family and the individuals who were enslaved on their plantations, the auction itself, and then the outcomes of that as families were dispersed throughout the entire South. So she, being probably the leading scholar in this area, can really help to help to shed more light on what we're trying to do in terms of the auctions of enslaved individuals in Albemarle.
Thank you.
I know that Dr. Bailey will wants to visit the site as well, and I think Jelaine might be coordinating a meeting with Dr. Bailey with some descendant contacts that she and the HRC have made, so that they can look at the site together. But I imagine that that would be a pretty small gathering, and it wouldn't. I don't see any need for that to be an official public meeting. In which case there couldn't be more than 2 committee members there. Okay.
Yes, and are the members of the descendant community who've been meeting about this, are they all aware of the date and time and stuff?
I haven't, I'm not sure, but they certainly will be well in advance.
Yeah, this was just finalized this week, and Jelaine's out of the country, and so I think she's going to do all that next week when she's back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll be sure CBHR knows, and
Yeah.
I mean, at our various intersection points before April 12th, we can all spread the word to.
Tom?
Are there any scheduled meetings for the planning for the event? I mean, the historical societies work very closely with JMRL on a number of programs. So, I mean, we have a pretty good working relationship. We could jump right into this and fit it into our program schedule and get some really good promotion. And I've also, like with JMRL, they don't do Facebook live stream with these. And what I've noticed with our Facebook live streams over the year and a half with 30 plus programs is we get a lot more people through Facebook who don't want to like connect to us and register with a Zoom kind of thing. So it's a little more of a democratic kind of way of putting a program out there, barring whatever you may think of Facebook. So I just wanted to throw that out as an option in terms of a live stream. So
Yeah.
if there's a planning meeting, I'd love to be involved.
We haven't scheduled one yet, Tom, but next week, particularly after Tuesday, I know that Jeff's and my schedule is pretty open. Maybe Jelaine is traveling right now, and I'm sure that she might want to be a part of that meeting. So we can touch base next week when she's back from traveling. But I think that's a great idea to schedule a planning meeting, and we can work out some promotional stuff too.
And I'd just like to support that. I must always go to the ACHS programs on Facebook rather than Zooming in. It is just, you can just hop on and, put in your schedule. It's not always an appropriate venue, but in this case, it may well be, but I just want to support how much easier it is to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know with JMRL, they like to be very detailed in terms of with these hybrid type of in-person and online things. So it could take a lot of, people kind of thinking this through to make sure it's planned just right. So I just wanted to offer my services, and we can figure that out next week when Jelaine gets back.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, I agree with your statement about Facebook streaming having more engagement. I've had that same experience with another group that I'm involved with. Kay, did you have something?
Yes, I was just going to suggest that even though we can individually contact the different organizations that we know about, that maybe we could all send contact names, say to Robert, of different organizations. So we'll get them all in and be able to let them know about this formally, as well as any way that we might do informally.
Okay.
That's a good idea. Yeah, and then additionally, I got Jenny wanted to let us know that Preservation Piedmont had agreed to make a financial contribution to Dr. Bailey's speaking fee, and I think we still need to figure out exactly who's making what contributions, but I think we as a committee agreed to fund whatever was not otherwise covered. So I think we're good in terms of actually like having that set up. But we just need to get the details about who exactly is doing what contributions.
Yeah.
I think I just want to applaud that particular partnership, if that's what you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, because that's another really great group to advertise through and maybe reach a slightly different audience, but one that it will be just as interested in. Preservation Piedmont's done just the whole preservation part of it, as I think is really appropriate. We should also reach out, of course. I mean, Jelaine is, of course, we'll do this in half of all of us, but African American Heritage Center. And I don't know how many of these organizations want to be, partners in order to advertise. I know through Ivy Creek, we used to, the more partners you get, the more, the word is spread, but there's limits to that too. So recognizing that.
Okay, anything else on that?
No, I
Item for now?
guess just to confirm, Jenny did send me Ellen's email, because Ellen was part of the vote for the Preservation Piedmont contribution, and then I think Rebecca Deeds, or so she also sent me those contacts, but neither of those people were able to join today's meeting, and I just want to make sure that there's nothing that the committee needs to do to formally accept or welcome the contribution. I guess you've said thank you, and it is a very generous contribution, but there's nothing we need to do to accept that.
I don't think so.
Okay.
And I think we also need to figure out like who pays what where, since that was a concern prior as to like how the money actually got to the right place to get to Dr. Bailey.
Yeah.
But we can figure that out offline, because that's more of a technical detail than anything else.
We do. I mean, I think just as protocol, you do want to be a little careful about what a contribution means in terms of access, because you don't want to get to a point where you say, no, I don't want your contribution to somebody else. So I don't mind moving that we accept the Preservation Piedmont's generous offer, if you think that is a good path to go. That would be a motion. If you think it's appropriate, I'm happy to take it back.
Second that.
Okay.
I think it probably makes sense to approve the contributions, and then you all can figure out whether they come to the city or, whether they just pay for the airplane or whatever it is, but probably it would make sense for them to come to the city.
Okay, that sounds fine to me. All those in favor of the motion to accept the contribution from Preservation Piedmont? Okay, that's everyone.
Great, thank you very much. So moving
Richard,
on to
did you have a? I think your video is a little choppy right now. Okay.
Yes, Sally's in a car, I think.
Unless there are any other comments, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Okay. Next is the downtown walking tour map. This says work session. I don't know how much work we have versus what we just a report or any solicitation for comments, but I'll turn it over to Dee and Kay.
Okay,
Well, I think
Kate,
it's
you want to
mostly-
start? Yeah.
Sure. I think it's mostly reporting. We had a great walk with Sterling Howell from the Historical Society last weekend. And that was, he's been doing a variety of tours for a period of time. He had commented on our original brochure, and we had thought that we would take advantage of his having given a lot of tours to, really take one with him and sort of talk about how he does it. And he was very generous with his time, and then also gave us copies of all of the different, because he does a sort of different variations of the tours. And they're very well researched, very well done. I mean, it was really great, and we felt benefited us a lot. And Dee Dee will say more about this, but we're kind of moving toward doing more geographic and trying to figure out how we will doing more geographic descriptions and trying to figure out what we'll do about themes. So we're still in the preliminary stages of that, and we need to talk more with our designer about that. But I think that's the direction we're going. But we're very grateful to Sterling and to the Historical Society for letting him spend so much time with us and for his material.
Yeah, thank you. That was a great synopsis, better than I would have done. And yes, ditto to Sterling. Thank you. I think Sterling's on this as a participant. Really great feedback. Really oriented us in a very productive way. I do think before we talked about bringing you sort of a prototype, but I think it's really important at this point to go back to the designer. I don't know if it would be helpful to you to see our crazy sort of mock-ups, but the design that we're thinking about really is oddly sort of going back in the direction of the original map, where it's very site-based. The sites on the map we will talk about. It's also can potentially simplify it in a way. So we're really thinking of setting up the map to be Court Square in Market Street, and then downtown and Water Street really are integrated, and Sterling really illustrated that so well, where there's a real path, really thinking not only about concentrating on geographic sites. So when you're on the ground, you're looking at what we're talking about, and potentially even having a path that somebody takes, which wouldn't be like the original map. The original map was, this is the building and here's an interesting story about it. But we really have an opportunity. And again, I think Sterling's tours really illustrated this, that particularly in being selective at what you talk about, you can be both thematic and geographic and really walk somebody through the history, but in many ways, keeping the different sites pretty separate from each other. I mean, I say separate just because you're on the ground. So we've been really trying to be prudent about using the designer's time, because every time we use the designer's time, it's costing us more money. But I think it's a good point to go back and say, okay, we think it's not actually a huge design issue, but big enough to call on her expertise. And let's talk about reorganizing this a little bit. Still same maps, still same geography. Interestingly too, and I know you probably don't, it's crazy to say since you're not looking at anything, but it actually probably buys us a little bit more space for the text as well, for a variety of reasons, which I think was something that was a little frustrating to some people who were looking at it, as we just didn't have that much text. But anyway, so we look forward to bringing back to you this kind of design. If again, you're not looking at anything, but if you've got some thoughts, and Sterling might have some thoughts about this. I don't want to put you on the spot, Sterling, but he was there with us, and really, we had a great tour. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but we're not, as I say, we're sort of going around in circles a little bit. We still have a lot of text, and it's just really how it's organized. And I think we're getting really closer to making it real accessible.
And I'll just jump in again and say, for example, I think it'll be much easier. I think Richard will be happy to hear this. I think it'll be much easier to get into the architecture. Yeah. We were doing that somewhat on our walk with Sterling, and just noticing as we were down there, like, oh yeah, we want to talk about this building or that building. And so I think that it will be easier to pick up on some of these themes, really, by doing it geographically rather than doing it by theme.
So as we say, I think the next step is to go back to the designer and say, and this is what we'd really like to think, because she's so good at envisioning how to make things logical and work.
Yes, and I would say the other step right before we talk to her will be just pulling together some of our geographic descriptions a little bit, so we can show her the kind of thing that we're thinking about. Sorry if that's not a whole lot to tell y'all, but it's bigger than it sounds.
Yeah, that's fine. Do y'all have a target for when you think you'll have a first draft of this out?
Yeah, like before now.
Well, I mean,
we did have a first draft. We did, but now we're rethinking.
Yeah.
Now we're going.
Okay, so maybe not a first draft, but
Yeah.
when you have something that maybe
Yeah,
close to final.
I would certainly hope by our summer meetings that we would have a really solid thing that we can start wordsmithing and
Okay.
And testing, and that will be, I think, really helpful when we do finally get something that's really on the ground, is that to enlist some committee members just to walk it with the prototype. But yeah, certainly next time, I don't know what our schedule is, and she's busy, but she can generally turn things around. So I'm hopeful maybe if we meet with her soon, by the next meeting, certainly 2 meetings, but hopefully the next meeting have then sort of this revised prototype, which I think will tell you a lot.
Okay. Yeah, that all sounds great. Any other comments about that?
And again, thank you, Albemarle Charlottesville Historical Society's contribution. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we'll move on to staff updates now. And we're literally an hour ahead of schedule. So Robert, Jeff.
Yeah, I didn't, again, this month, I didn't kind of prepare a list of things to talk about. Jeff might have things that he's more excited to share. The big thing, the announcement last month was the Board of Architectural Review was about to look over plans for the courthouse, the new Albemarle District Court, which is going to be located on the site behind the Levy Opera House. You can go back and watch the video from the review. The BAR didn't approve it necessarily. It wasn't ready for approval, but there were a lot of concerns, a lot of questions about just the direction the design was going. But then Jeff and I met with the architects a week later, and they had revised it just in the week between the BAR meeting and the week after. And we were very confident and optimistic about the direction that the building is going in after that meeting. So hopefully sometime this spring or early summer, the architects will bring the project back for review. It's a really big project. It's a really monumental project that'll change how you enter downtown from High Street. And it's important too. It's where the courts are held. So that's something that to just keep an eye on. Jeff, do you have any other additional announcements you'd like to share?
No, I didn't know if, I know there are some questions, I guess, about the court square and what happens next. I had a conversation internally a week or two ago and just, let my boss know that to do something at Court Square is ultimately, and I would say entirely, a function of what City Council decides to do, and that it's in Council's, it's in their power to ask us to do something or instruct the committee to do something. So I just, again, to continue to make that clear to folks that the HRC does not dictate what City Council does. We can make recommendations. The committee has made a recommendation relative to a temporary marker at Court Square, and my understanding is you all have stuck with that, and that's so there's an understanding there. It's just, but with some new members of council and obviously some new members of city staff, city management, just again try to pass up the line that that the committee was very thoughtful about this, but it is a recommendation, and that if council feels that something should be done, it is in their right to make that decision. It's not like we could veto what they wanted to do. So just, it is sometimes, as we all know, the subtleties are the more difficult things to explain, but in fact it is. If council wants to take action on Court Square in any way, shape, or form, they can make a decision. We can't veto that, nor can we instruct them to do something. So just wanted to share that what was going on internally, but no, otherwise nothing really, nothing new to share.
Okay.
Yes, and shouldn't we just add to that because Jolene isn't here to say it, but that, we have been trying to be deferential to the descendant community discussion about what should happen at Court Square. And that just takes longer when you're doing a real public participation kind of thing. And, both the research that her team has been doing and then the communication with the descendant community, I think has been really important. And I was glad to see recently on Liberation Day that some of that descendant community is having its own events and moving forward. So that's really very good.
Okay. Any other staff updates?
Nope.
Okay. Next on to coordinate the agenda for the April HRC meeting. So this meeting is actually on the 8th of April, so it will be before the Ann Bailey event. Are there any anything anybody wants to bring up for that meeting? I mean, previously we discussed possibly having a little bit of a work session on how we run these meetings and how formal we need to be when the majority of our motions and whatnot are unanimous, because many of them are just sort of procedural and uncontroversial. So we could put in some time on the agenda to discuss that.
Sounds good. It's a shame we didn't do it today. We're gonna have a lot of time.
Yeah. Is there, I mean, we've been running our meetings with approximately half the time dedicated to the walking tour, half the time dedicated to this project at Court Square. Is there any need to kind of divide it differently or come up with new things to add to the agenda? Or are you comfortable with this agenda moving forward for the next few meetings?
I think my view on that is that having these two pretty significant items, focusing on those is better right now when we know, well, hopefully both of these will be finished sometime in the summer. That we'll have the walking tour done, and then we'll have our report to council completed on Court Square, and then we can add other things in and start trying to do other things. I feel like as it is now, we have these two large things that we're trying to focus on, and anything else would kind of overwhelm our ability to do things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That sounds good.
Yeah, and I think sometime when we get closer to finishing both of these, or the phases of these projects, we should probably have a review looking at the Blue Ribbon Commission report from 2016, and sort of going through that and looking at what has been either, I don't want to say handled, what has been addressed or finished from that, and what remains, and pick whatever is next, or just sort of analyze our priorities based on how those things have progressed in the last 6 years.
And we have that matrix, and I can send that out again, that sort of summarize, well, it doesn't, it lists each of the recommendations and then provides some summary of things that have been done by the committee and by others within the city. And it's always, it's a rather, it's a heartening list when you see that a lot has occurred. Certainly not everything, but you do see kind of a good digest of actions that have been taken. So I can certainly send that out again ahead of the discussion if necessary.
Yeah, that would be great, Jeff. Yeah, so we'll probably aim to do that sometime in the summer when we're winding these projects down. Dee Dee?
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh, I just did one, speaking of things, I don't know if the HRC gets credit for this, but Jeff and Robert certainly do. The Penn Park project, the next CVHR meeting, Sam Towler will be talking about so the research he's done, really kind of more delving into some nitty-gritty details. It's very genealogical. I've seen the slides, so I've seen it's pretty technical, because most of the CVHR people do genealogical work. But it's going to be really interesting, and he's looks like he'll be talking really about how we did it, how he traced back descendants, and so I think it's going to be really interesting. That's on April 7th, first Thursday at 4 p.m. So while it's probably not of sort of the general public interest, anybody who's doing genealogical work, particularly in African American history, I think will be interested.
Yeah, he had a segment in the last Penn Park presentation through the library, didn't he, Jeff? Was that?
Yeah.
I remember watching it. I can't remember where it was.
Yeah, that was oh gosh, Tom, that was what, a month ago? Time is flying. We've been
that was our partnership with JMRL. We did it over at Northside, and he was also interviewed for the NBC 29 one that came through, and then in my humble opinion, actually did a
Oh.
follow-up with some of the Waller family that St. Jean had interviewed for their article. So yeah, a lot of great momentum with the Penn Park project, and looking to hopefully see how that can overlap or help expand upon the Cork Square descendant community conversation too. I think there's an important story there.
Right, which is why it's relevant. And what he says about this upcoming CVHR is he really concentrated just on a couple descendants in the in that grade. It was a great program. But this is diving deeper into the descendant, his descendant research, which is just for those who think we've seen it all, there's new stuff, so.
Yeah, I offered to the CDHR to promote and turn it into, and you were in that conversation, Dee Dee, about a public program. But the best way to think of this program with Sam is it's a working group where he is going to inundate everyone with the ins and outs and nuts and bolts of his research. And most of the people in CVHR follow him completely and know exactly what he's doing. But for a public person coming into it, they would be lost on the third slide probably. So
Yeah.
That was the whole point. Thank you for understanding.
But it's a larger conversation of surnames that he's found, and he's trying to mine, the general, wealth of data and minds out there with the local historians to see, what are the things I haven't done? Where are the threads that I can pull? So it's I love Sam. He's my research rock star.
Yeah. And this is a study in process too. I mean, it's just whoa. It'll be great. Yeah. For those of us who could hear this all day. So yeah.
Okay, well, we kind of already transitioned to segue to announcements. So
sorry.
Are there any? No, I mean, just take over and move us along the agenda. The one announcement that I wanted to make was that the HRC applications for the committee membership are due today to council. If there's anybody who wants to take the next 5 hours to fill out an application. Yeah, I think that's the only announcement that I had. Any other?
Phil, I would like to let you all know about a choral performance tomorrow afternoon, if the weather cooperates. This is something that the Oratorio Society is presenting in combination with some other singers from the community, other choirs and groups. It's going to be at Aldersgate United Methodist Church on Ryle Road at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. The reason that I mention it especially to you all is one of the works that's going to be included is selections from a large choral work by an African-American composer, Margaret Bonds, who died in 1972. Her work is not widely known, but is getting some more performances currently. The work is called Credo. We, the chorus, are doing certain portions of it in combination with a bass baritone soloist who's based in New York currently, named Jonathan Woody. He's a fantastic singer and does the part great justice. The text of the work, Credo, is based on poetry by W.E.B. Du Bois, and the setting is really effective. I think that people would enjoy it if they were able to hear it. There are recordings of it online too in YouTube, and it's worth giving a listen to. But it's a mid-century, 20th century type of choral work, very solid but very appealing, and of course conveys a very pointed message. So I would just recommend it if anyone would like to come. We hope that it goes forth as planned. There are going to be a few other works on the program too, but the Bonds work is the big thing. So.
That's Thank you.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Okay, anybody
I have
else?
Yeah, I have a couple
Oh, good.
announcements. One announcement is, the first announcement is a question, and maybe this is for Kay. With the January 23rd Mount Zion First Baptist MLK celebration, they mentioned an April 10th date for a program at the Ting Pavilion. I was just curious if that had ever been settled on, and since it was close to our April 12th Ann Bailey program, how, anyway, just thinking if there's any overlap.
Definitely set up for that time. I believe it's, I don't have it right in front of me right now, but it's, I think it's 3 o'clock that afternoon.
Okay,
And-
yeah, that's what I had.
Yeah, and so we're in the process of perhaps having, well, I know we'll have an outstanding speaker and we'll have music, but we're talking to the speaker right now and I'm pretty excited.
Sorry, what is that event?
This is the MLK, the usual community MLK event that was held virtually at Mount Zion in January, but with looking toward having a in-person event
Okay.
at the downtown at the pavilion on that Sunday, which happens to be Palm Sunday for those of you who are Christian or go to church. And it's going to be that afternoon, and there will be music. Jonathan Spivey will be getting a group together, and a speaker or speakers. But it should be a great event, and so hopefully we'll get it publicized. But thanks for asking about it, Tom, because yes, it will be happening.
Yeah, I was just running through the calendar real quick.
Yeah.
One announcement is we're going to be doing the first exhibit at Francis Brand's portraits. We'll be making a selection of those, and that'll be at the center at the Belvedere. This is for July and August of this year, but we're going to be trying to contact people and connect with people related to those portraits, and also related to the procurement of that a number of years ago after Miss Brand passed away, and we kind of preserved those. So if anyone has any contacts or any thoughts, or just we're starting to think through plans on that. I've been working with the Tom Tom Festival folks, and one thing that maybe for nonprofits is that they're looking to have nonprofits help with the gates for their downtown mall block party on April 22nd and 23rd, where nonprofits can be at the gates and help participate in, just, ID checks and bracelets, but also put out a donation box if you have a brochure, and, if you want to tell people about your organization. So I thought that was something interesting. April 30th, Lorenzo Dickerson and Jordy Yeager are going to be putting out their Raised Vinegar Hill video. So it's going to be at the Jefferson School. They were trying to get it in the Staples parking lot, but that never worked out. So they're going to have it in the Jefferson School with a big outdoor screen. So it's going to be an outdoor screening. So looking forward to that.
What's that date, Tom?
April 30th. I believe it's a Saturday. Yes. Let's see. Yeah, I would just recommend I participated in the first Swords to Plowshare community meeting that they had this past weekend. I know they have a website and a survey out. They're really looking to get community engagement in terms of thinking through that step. And also being here on Market Street Park with all the other groups around us. Coming up as the weather gets better in April, I think April 1st, there's a meeting of church groups. And then May 13th and 14th, there's another meeting kind of in the works that I've heard about, where people are just trying to, use the park and think through, what are the next steps there. So nothing official, but just community organizations coming together to, think through that. And yeah, thank you for the Penn Park mention. I mean, that's been great in terms of, the work that's been going on there and the connections with the community. So yeah, it's been great.
Sorry, I
So
didn't mention you in that. I realized afterwards, oh, Tom's doing that. that too.
Oh, no. I don't want to take, credit for it. It's like really, I reached out to Jeff, and Jeff said, sure, like, let's figure out what we can do with this. And it's just, it's blown up in many ways that I'm just completely surprised and awed with. But the goal is the community engagement and descendants, bringing their voices to this. So it's, in many ways, it's kind of an organic growth to see where it goes. So it's kind of one of those court square questions. It's like, how do you let this organically grow into something while you're trying to bureaucratically manage it? And yeah, so we'll just see how it all works, but it's been great being involved in it.
Yeah, so I'll just, tag on to that. We had an obligation to look, and we looked, and we were amazed, even as we've expressed in our meetings or our presentations online and interviews with the last week with NBC 29 or 2 weeks ago, and just saying we originally thought we were looking at 8 to 10 depressions in the ground, and simply I was not prepared for what we have, and I just am so grateful to the Historical Society for that when Tom contacted me, because they have taken the ball and run with this. I think that I think the committee, I will say I've been asked by Assistant City Manager to consider something appropriate there to let folks know what is there and what we know, even if it's just simply a small sign that indicates, this is an area of unmarked graves. But I don't want this to sound mean, but I haven't sensed from the HRC a lot of interest in being involved in this. So I'm not sure how much to bring to your attention, but I can say it's not the scale of what's happening. Again, it's due to the Historical Society stepping in, and there is an opportunity if you all want to continue to, committee can support what the Historical Society is doing. Last year, I used some other funds to help with an intern to do some work over there. But I would like the committee to kind of revisit its role and maybe to if not involved directly, maybe there's a way to support Tom's work with some of the finance we have available, or the committee has available. So sorry, that's.
Yeah, I'll actually just respond to that, Jeff. That I think any lack of engagement has only been for lack of attention. In that we have so many, we have several other things, including the most notably the Court Square project that we've been focusing on. And I don't think that not having engaged with the Penn Park work is because of lack of interest. I think it's just lack of time and attention. And so, I definitely think that could be something that we focus more on after we've finished these couple of projects. And I will also say that for me, the work of engaging, starting building that nucleus of the descendant community around Penn Park has sort of been something that I've been waiting on. That there's no actionable things without that feedback, and so that community has to be built first before we do anything more than just rope it off. And so that community is definitely being built now, and so if there was any actionable things that we could work on or contribute towards, I think that they should definitely be brought before the committee. And I would fully support whatever that was, given that it was done with done at the behest of the descendants.
Yeah. So that's it. Yeah, there's a little bit of being pulled in a couple of different directions. There is interest, certainly city council. I've had some responses to the things that have been advertised and put out there. So, but I'm not worried. That's not the right word. I think this thing's huge, and it's like I don't have the capacity to be the person in charge, but yet, Robert and I are able to keep this thing alive, at least within the city, the discussion within city government. So it's, but I do think it's, we're probably a long way away from having a descendant community we can have a conversation with about doing something out there. But it is said there's just to simply say what is there. I'm having some conversations with Ashley Marshall about that simply to say this is an area of unmarked graves, so people know why there's a rope out there. Yeah, I do get asked a lot about, well, can we put stones up? Well, and I tell them I don't know where the graves are. I mean, we don't know if everything that we found is a grave, and we certainly know there's probably others out there. But I think that we are going to probably working towards something that informs folks that go to the park. Why is this area roped off, and what's, even maybe just who to contact if they've got questions about it. So, but I think we're a long way from having a descendant group that's able to say, yeah, this is what we would like to have, how we would view this area as being remembered. So, all right.
Dee, did you have a question or comment?
Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that. I think that it's a really important project. I don't know that it's the role of the HRC to delve in as deeply. I so admire you all who have done this. We do have, I think, just the idea, I've always thought of it kind of as a model in a sense of how to do this in a public park, because we have a lot of public parks, and we do have the Ivy Creek Natural Area as one of the city-owned parks, and there's a huge project right now going on for the restoration of the farmhouse, which was 100 years in an African-American family. And that's big. It's being mostly coordinated by the county because it's a joint project. But I do think that we should recognize that our parks are public places, and there are stories. Washington Park has an amazing story, and I mean, they all have stories, and we should really honor that this work is being done in a park, but we may have other opportunities to do this. It's convoluted, but parks are near and dear to my heart, and I love the idea, and I think it's a very hot topic right now of combining cultural and natural histories, and that's the opportunity we have in parks. I do think, if I just make a comment about using HRC funds on this, I think we have to be, as a former city councilor, I think we have to be really, really careful about overstepping roles that are often taken by city council, which is support of nonprofits or whatever this, I don't know where that process is now and all the craziness of the last 2 years, but they have a whole process for supporting nonprofits. So I just think just a little caution in overstepping our bounds.
Thanks, Dee. I had one other item to mention, and that's that the Holsinger Portrait Project, which I know Dr. John Edwin Mason, who's been involved a lot in our local history endeavors, is a big part of. They are doing a pop-up exhibition at Northside Library through the end of the month. That's a preview of the larger exhibition that they're getting together for later this year. So that is a particularly interesting part of Charlottesville history that's there. Okay, anyone else have any announcements or events?
I did mean to say that the Central Library did get their historic marker for the court case that was decided in there. It's been interesting because it's a city county owned building. Everyone's trying to figure out who do they talk to get a post installed in the ground. So they kept asking me, but I think we figured that out. We were getting the post installed, and they'll be putting something out when that's done and when they do the unveiling. But just you all had discussed that some time ago, and but just yes, the marker is coming, and we will be invited to the event. So.
And the Burley must have the same issue of that city county. And is that going to go in around the same time? Do we know?
God, I don't know. I know that Mr. Hollins has something in mind. Boy, I think he sent something out to me. But you know, I said that that's a city. That's actually Burley's owned by the city, or I'm sorry, by the county schools. So they're working with them to put the post in, and then we had the marker on the wall that we also, the committee talked about. So yes, that's coming soon.
I just figured since it's in the city, I didn't know if that complicated it.
No, but it was actually a little easier because it was like, oh, well then I'll let them do it. But yeah, the library was sort of, you know, and I just said back to David, I said, well, who do you guys usually call, you know, if the light bulbs need to be changed? I don't know. And, but we figured it out. So that's happening. Never a dull moment.
All right, anything else?
If you want a sneak peek of the DHR marker, it's in our basement. So come visit the Historical Society, take a look at it.
Go put it up and save everybody a lot of trouble.
Can I just ask, are those official state highway markers or are they local markers?
Those are the DHR markers, correct.
With numbers and letters and, you know, yeah. Okay, that's good. That's a high bar.
Okay, and with that, we conclude the HRC meeting for March.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good weekend.
Thank
Have a good
you.
weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert.